Hello, everyone. My name is Benny, and I'm a senior software engineer at Irembo. I welcome you to today's Tech Talk. I'm joined today with my colleague, William. Welcome, William.
Thank you, Benny. Happy to be here.
William is also a senior DevOps engineer at Irembo. And today we have an interesting topic in our today's Tech Talk. We're going to talk about the importance of CI/CD pipeline in software development, and as well as the best practices to follow while implementing the CI/CD pipeline. So without further ado, I'm going to start with giving William the floor, and he's going to explain to us what is the CI/CD pipeline.
Okay, thank you, Benny. So, a CI/CD pipeline, I would explain it as a process that is put in place just to ensure that the software which is supposed to be in production is built, every errors are detected just ahead of the being released, and also to create a confidence in the released software. That's how simply I would explain CI/CD pipeline. So if we go into more details, starting with OUD, so it's the CI/CD, means it has it's kind of two stages. Mm-hmm. The first stage is CI, and the next stage is CD. So CI is continuous integrations, mainly that will in few words, it will facilitate developers to collaborate between them and ensure that the code that is being developed is has no errors. It means it's not going to break the existing code. Mm-hmm. And when you go on the CD part, which is continuous deployment, is ensuring that the deployment or the release is deployed as fast as we can. Yeah, that's how I'll explain what CI/CD pipeline is in a few words.
Okay, so I think from my understanding, CI/CD pipeline is something recent. So what was there before we had CI/CD pipeline? Like, how traditionally were software deployed in production before CI/CD?
Yeah, that's correct. Even to understand better the importance of CI/CD, it is better to go like in the past and see how the software was released traditionally, or even it was manual process. So what I would say is, imagine you have a software team, you have developers working on features. In traditional way, you would have like one developer, or say someone who is responsible for the releases, right? Yeah. He's going to take he's going to package the software on his local machine, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's probably one server, which is a production server, and he's going to take that packaged software and they release it in production. Mainly, that process is so you can't do that. You can't do that on weekdays. It is put probably on weekends to ensure that there's no, yes, to ensure that there are no downtimes. Yeah, you can. It might sound as simple and not risky, but that is so risky. Yeah, that's so traditional.
So can you give us maybe some of the inconveniences of having that process?
Yes.
And the risks.
So the risks, the risk of having such kind of settings, so everything is manual. So means something, if it's manual, it is prone to errors. Yeah. And something might skip that packaging process and skip into production. Yes, you might be having documentation, but we all know that the documentation might be there, but they are not followed 100%. Yeah. And if something skipped in production, maybe if your business relies on what's going to be in the next release, you're going to frustrate. It's going to make your customers not happy.
Okay. And you said that would be done on the local machine of the developer. So if you have a team, let's say, of 5 developers, that would mean any one of us would do that kind of release process and move it to production.
Maybe might even be having one person responsible for that release process. But if he's going to do the release, to package, he's going to fix the integration issues by himself. So say we're working on 2 features, but say we're working on login feature, I'm working on sign up feature. Probably it has a function that we're all going to be using.
Yeah.
There is no way to see whether the changes you put in that function is not going to break my change.
Yeah.
So that process is going to be, the trust is going to be put in a person to give it, to test it by himself and then ship it in production. So that process is manual. You can't really rely on it if you want to deploy with confidence, if I would say that.
Okay. Now, so coming back to CI/CD, then if you now go in more details, because you've mentioned the traditional way was kind of manual.
Yeah.
So how does CI/CD automate that process?
Oh, okay. Okay, so first of all, if you want to I would say to move from the traditional way into a modern way, or a way with CI/CD pipelines, first of all, you will ensure that the collaboration is good. So if you have some changes, you're going to get feedback just ahead of it being deployed in production. So you're going to have kind of version control system. Say the more popular one is GitHub,
Yeah.
or you use Git, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to ensure that with the CI pipelines, which is continuous integrations, which is going to assist developers to collaborate in more efficient way, you're going to ensure that whatever commit or whatever new change that developer among your team is going to push is going to be checked. So first you're going to ensure that does that change not going to break the existing code? So you're going to put some kind of conditions in the CI pipeline.
Yeah.
And also you're going to ensure that there's a visibility of everyone's work. So if you push something on that version control system, anyone in the team is going to have visibility on what you're working on. So you can get feedback from it, feedback that is from the conditions that you put in the pipeline, or even the feedback from your peers.
Yeah.
Yes. Also, if you go to then CD pipelines, you are going to ensure that the deployment is going to be fast. So that mono process, that traditional way it does, we are going to put it in automated way. So that instead of waiting for weekends to do the deployment, because we have trust in our ways, we can even deploy multiple times in a day because we have an automated process.
Okay. So I think I read on that last point you mentioned, given that also the CI/CD pipeline basically helps organization to increase the deployment cadence. So now, I think you've said it, but I want to understand exactly if I'm a developer and in my organization, they say they've implemented a CI/CD pipeline. I would assume we have, as you said, we have Git, I'm pushing my changes. So what are the default checks that usually are there in the CI that are going to make sure that, okay, as every developer, we have to follow this so that we make sure that the changes we've made are actually safe?
Oh, okay, thank you for that. So the checks you can put in place, one is, so basically the best practice when you're writing your code, you have the tests. So you write a function and you write a function that tests it.
Yeah.
So in the conditions that you put is whenever there's a new committed change, you ensure that it's not going to break other changes.
Yeah.
By running all the tests all together when there's new commit. So by that we are protecting our code.
Yeah.
So that's first. The second is we might have kind of analysis on our code, right? So whenever there's a new change that is committed, we are going to analyze it first for probably you have some convention that you are following. Say what's an example? Say you have some linting conventions, you need to have indentation of 2 lines instead of 4 lines. So that kind of indentation, so that you have a common way of doing things. Say if your function can't exceed a certain number of lines for readability and maintainability, those kind of code scanning you can put in place. Also, the other check you can put is say checking for vulnerability, security vulnerabilities. So whenever every changes that is committed, you ensure that it's not going to introduce any vulnerability. So those are the kind of checks you can put.
So now, what are the best practices that one can follow if they are going to implement a CI/CD pipeline for their first time?
Okay, that's a good question. It's basically what we mentioned earlier. So it is ensure that your CI pipelines, you have all those checks that we mentioned. So first, you ensure that the test, also you need to ensure that everything written has also tests for it. So you need to ensure that every commit that is added on your version control system is not going to break anything. That's the best practice number 1. The other thing is security check, so to ensure that there is not going to add any new vulnerability in your releases. And the other thing is I would say code analysis. So you have kind of conventions that you are following. Everything that is being added should adhere to that. That's best practice, I would say, on CI pipeline.
Okay. And so specific to a production environment, what are the benefits basically of having it? Because I think the way we implement a CI/CD pipeline for, let's say, a dev environment would be separate from how we do it for a production environment. So what are the ones that are very specific to a production environment to make sure that whatever the CI/CD pipeline is doing is not going to cause any incidents or issues? Is there anything additional for production?
I would say there shouldn't be something specific for an environment, because so the reason why we want to put the CI/CD pipelines in place is to have one way of doing things. So that create a confidence in our releases, and that also brings in kind of reliability of our systems. So if we have CI/CD pipelines, needs to be tested from dev environment to stage environment and to production environment, so that we know that this is our process that is going to be applied on all environments. I think the best way is to have one common way of doing the releases regardless of the environment, to create the confidence in your releases.
Okay, great. So moving on, I think I would want to understand exactly maybe some examples of what you've done, of what are the tools you've used in the past to implement a CI/CD pipeline. If you can give us like a demonstrative example of one.
Okay. So starting from the CI pipelines, so I've used, so most of the time we are deploying on GitHub, and GitHub is more popular now as a version control platform. So GitHub has this CI/CD pipeline tool called GitHub Actions. So that's one I've used it. So from say that's the one tool that you can use to implement the CI/CD pipeline. So inside the CI pipeline, then to do the code scanning, you can use either PsychoCI, even Sonar Cloud. Those two can assist you in doing. I've used them to do the code scanning. Also on running test, it depends on which language you are using. So there's If there's Java, there's specific framework that you can use. If there's JavaScript, there's specific framework that you can use. That mainly depend on the stack that we're using. And on vulnerability scanning, I mainly use open source. The one is Trivy. So Trivy does the scanning of your code to ensure that there's no secret is going to be exposed, because that's also something that we need to pay attention on to ensure that in your code base on GitHub or any version control platform, you don't have secret exposed. So Trivy does that check to ensure that there's no secret pushed on your code base, on your version control platform. Also, besides, it does the security scanning also. That's
So
what
when
is.
talking about the secret, how does Trivy know what is a secret?
That's a tricky question. I don't know how. Okay, so on security side in the CI pipeline, so you can use Trivy to do the security check. Even there is a Sysdig. They are both open sources. And so those are the tools I mainly have used in the CI pipelines. So on the CD pipeline, which is continuous deployment, so I mainly do when the application is packaged, right? The release have been created with a specific tag.
Yeah.
That also depends on the environment that you are running your production on.
Yeah.
So because the environment I mostly work with is Kubernetes, I use some cloud native deployment tools. The one that I use is called Argo CD. So Argo CD, mainly what it does is connected to your cluster, and it is always listening to the newly created images on your Docker images on your version control system or Docker container registry, and whenever there is a new release, it's going to auto deploy your release in environment, either testing environment, either staging environment, or even in your production environment.
Okay. And how do you now monitor that the CI/CD pipeline you've implemented is actually working as expected?
Yes. First thing to do to ensure that the pipeline is working as expected, because we are using the same pipeline across all the environments, starting from testing, staging to production.
Yeah.
We have that confidence that if the release is up to the point it needs to be in production, we have the confidence that has been running in other environment, testing and staging.
Yeah.
So what we do to monitor in the CI integration, we have kind of alerts that is being sent on Slack messages just instantly when the pipeline is running, whether the CI pipeline has passed or not. So we notify people. That kind of
I see.
what we do, yeah.
So now you've mentioned Argo CD, and I've used Argo CD a little bit, and I think mainly I've seen that it also shows you if the deployments have passed and failed, but there is something about readiness probes and liveness probes. What are those used for?
Oh, okay. So liveness probes and readiness probes, those are the features that you can put on your application, right? So readiness probes, it ensures that your application is ready to accept the traffic. And liveness probes is kind of check that we do every certain period that you've set, say every 5 minutes, to ensure that your application is up. So its importance, I would say, if you've deployed it, say in Kubernetes infrastructure, you are releasing an application. First, before that new version of application gets deployed in production, those checks needs to pass. So first needs to be ready. There's liveness probes that you set. So readiness probes means this new application can accept the traffic. Means you've put, say, liveness probes, you are checking certain endpoint. If that endpoint returns OK signal, 200 status code, means the application can start receiving the traffic. So when that passes, the application now can do the what I call rolling. We can roll the new release then, because that new application has shown that can now accept the traffic.
Okay.
And then when the application is up and running, after a certain period of time, we are doing kind of check, does this application still working?
Up.
If it is not up, we are going to recreate a new one so that it can accept the traffic. Yeah.
Okay. So now you have your CI/CD pipeline, you are running the builds, and you are doing the deployments. Now, what happens if, let's say, your build is taking 30 minutes and your deployment is taking another 30 minutes? That's like a whole hour for the CI/CD pipeline. How do you go about optimizing that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So starting from the CI pipelines, there are kind of optimization you can do on the pipeline. So first of all, because you are running most of the times, you are running same dependencies. You are pulling same dependencies to build your image. Even your integration tools that we are using uses like kind of same files. So what you do, you implement caching mechanism so that instead of always pulling those new changes from internet, you have it in your storage, in your caching database. So with the GitHub Actions, it has a GitHub action that you can use to do the caching. So that's the first thing you can do. The other thing you can do, because as you were developing, your application gets more big, right? It increases by the time. So the other thing you can do, you can introduce parallelization. So what you can do is, say you have 3 steps that needs to be run. You can run those 3 steps. If no one depends on the other, you can run them in parallel. So that one is going to decrease the time the CI process takes. So on the deployment also, the thing you can, mainly the deployment or the release mainly depends on the infrastructure you're running on. If the infrastructure doesn't have good bandwidth, it is likely that your release is also going to be affected by that bandwidth you have. So if you have good infrastructure, the deployment most of the times goes faster.
Should go faster.
Yes.
Okay. So now there is 2 terms that are kind of the same when it comes to CD. So I think we've been using continuous deployment, but I've read there's also continuous delivery. Do you know what is the difference between both?
Mostly they're kind of the same. Continuous delivery is ensuring that, say you need to deploy an application just instantly. Continuous delivery is whenever there is a code that is flagged to be ready to be shipped, it can ship at any time. So it means you have, if you are working on, say, 2 different features, can we have them delivered immediately? Like in separate ways, we can test it immediately. So that's how I understand about the continuous delivery. And continuous deployment, it's just the process of deploying your release in production.
So I'm asking, we have continuous delivery and continuous deployment.
Yes.
So when it comes to testing, let's say the build that we are trying to move to production, because the end goal is we have this in production.
Yes.
So for both of them, do they go through the phase of being tested? Meaning there is like a UAT or staging environment where they're going to be tested, and then if the QA who's testing that validates, we can now move them to production? Or do we have one of them that doesn't need testing?
Testing of the QA or testing of the running unit tests?
Testing of the QA, like human testing of the software.
So I think there are, say, when you are still in development stages and you think your software is not ready to be tested by QA, but yet you need to see how it is behaving in the infrastructure, which is more like the production one. You don't have to have the QA in testing, so you can even skip that one. So that's why you have different environments.
Yeah.
So there are ways you can implement that. One is having specific dev environment, and some other environments you can have. Whenever you create a pull request, you have the environment that is generated for you to test that feature before you even merged into a develop branch.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it a good practice to have the CI/CD pipeline fully automated even for production?
That would depend. That would depend. For me, I would like to have it all automated, but that would depend also on how critical the release you are trying to release is. So most of the times, for all other environments should be automated except for production. But also in production, you might be having two production environments.
Yeah.
One could be UAT and the other one could be production itself.
Yeah.
So UAT, which is is going to host all the stable releases, and the production is going to be the stable releases, but only allowed by to be accessed by the public.
Yeah.
I would. It depends on the criticality of the software that you're working on.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and what about a rollback? So, if we have this CI/CD automated, and yes, we have no errors being flagged in the CI/CD process, but when it gets to production, we have some issues. Me as a developer, how do I go about rolling back? Given that, let's say, I only do a pull request, and once it's merged, the CI/CD is triggered, the thing is live. How do I now do a rollback of the things I've deployed?
Okay, so yes, that makes more sense. So the thing you can ensure when you're building the CI/CD pipelines also is to ensure that the rolling back process is easy. So also that will depend on the tools that you've chosen to use. Also how if you create a release, how do you differentiate it with the previous one?
Yeah.
So to easily know, yes, we are on this release, how do we know even the previous release? How do we know it?
Yeah.
So how to roll back, it depends on the tools.
So let's say if we take examples of the tools you've mentioned, GitHub Actions, Argo CD, how do we do the rollback with those?
Yes, starting from GitHub Actions. So in the release process, we've tagged our applications. Means we've packaged the application, we give it a certain name.
Yeah.
So a name, let's say we've called it version 1.0.1. Right?
Yeah.
And then in production, remember we're using Argo CD. Argo CD is going to detect that new version that was created, version 1.0.1, is going to put it in production. And then when we find out that there's an issue, or all the liveness, readiness probes have passed, but then we notice that there's probably a bug.
Yeah.
So we better go back to the previous one.
Yeah.
So Argo CD, it is going, because we are using Kubernetes again.
Yeah.
Kubernetes is going to, I would say, to keep history of at least 10 previous releases that you have. So if you are on version 1.0.1, the previous, probably is going to be version 1.0.0. So with Argo CD, you can, with one simple click, you can click and then you go back without any downtime.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. So in the CI/CD pipelines you've implemented, what would say are some of the challenges you've faced in implementing those CI/CD pipeline? And maybe to give you more guidance, we can start by mentioning what is the difference between implementing a CI/CD pipeline for a microservice architecture versus maybe a monolith application.
Yeah. So designing, let's start with the microservices because it is easier to deal with. So microservices, in their nature, they are separated.
Yeah.
So means if they are hosted on version control platform, they are going to be on standalone repositories.
Yeah.
So the deployment, the CI/CD pipeline is going to be simple, and because every change from developer is going to be mainly for that microservices, so they are going to use the same CI/CD pipelines. So now the challenge with the monolithic applications, mainly it's composed of multiple projects.
Yeah.
And then those projects, you might be having different people working on that.
Yeah.
Different projects means we have project A, B, C, and we have people, some people can only collaborate on project A in the same repository. Some other people are going to maintain project B. So in the CI/CD pipelines, also you're going to add complexities, like to know if someone has pushed on this folder, I know that I'm going to trigger only, say, the test for specific for this folder. So we're going to make the CI/CD pipelines more complicated, and the more you make it complicated, the harder it gets to maintain.
Yeah.
And also, if it breaks, say, monolithic application, monorepo has 3 projects, and CI/CD pipelines in the first project is broken. So if it's broken, it's going to block the contributions of the other teams. So that's the challenges I see between managing a monorepo and even standalone repositories.
And what if you just go by saying, this is a monolith, and I'm going to treat it as one project, meaning the CI/CD is just one thing, and if you push and you have 10 projects, I'm going just to run all the 10 projects. And if it's failing, yes, it's going to be failing for all, and then it's up to the engineer to find out what has failed. So
yeah, that's my work, but there's a cost on that. Because remember, why are we doing the CI/CD pipelines? Is to ensure that the shipping process to production is so fast. So if we say you pushed in project A and we have 3 projects, so it is going to run the testing all the project, even that process may take more hours. So you are go back to manual process, which you had to wait for a weekend to do the release. Even though you are committing, you are testing everything, but the process is going to be so long. Yes.
So you would recommend having a microservice in order to implement an efficient CI/CD process?
Yes, I'd recommend to make your CI/CD pipelines more simple, more manageable. Even if you are not there in 5 years, you can come back and be able to know what you did in that pipeline. Yes.
Okay. So are there any other challenge you've seen? I think I've mentioned those that probably are facing the engineer much, but like on the DevOps side, when implementing this CI/CD, are there any other challenges you've seen that one could face?
The challenge I've faced is you have a pipeline, you've designed it, it's been running for almost a year, and then one morning, everything is not working. Like nobody has committed a change in that pipeline. So that's the first challenge, to even know, like you are reading everything is
as it was yesterday.
Yes, as it was yesterday, and it should be working. Like the logic is clear. And that's the challenge, but again, you need improvement from time to time because technologies evolve. If we are using some on GitHub Action, if you're using some agents, which are GitHub Action agents to run your test on, they are evolving. Some things are being deprecated. Also, keep up with the new changes. That's the main challenges. If it would be possible to just design a CI/CD pipelines and to work for life, that would be good.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm sure with technology, things don't always go as you've planned. And I've seen. So, for example, talking of GitHub Actions, I've seen cases where the storage, let's say, is full, and then you have to deal with it. And you also mentioned GitHub Action having its own kind of caching database. How do you deal with storage with GitHub Actions? Because I think the main difference there is that if you are doing the other manual part on your machine, basically, if you're running unit tests, you could even be using your local DB, and then everything else you'd be using what is locally on on your laptop, but when it gets to GitHub Actions, how does all of those storage things, how are they managed?
So basically, how it should be working is GitHub Action should be able to maintain the caching databases, but that's not usually the case.
Yeah.
I mean, it is managed by it, but sometimes there are some errors that are coming from the cached data. So you need to go back manually and you delete the caching DB. So now it is, you can easily get the caching DB, you know it, you can delete it.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of maintenance we put around the caching DBs on GitHub Actions.
And for me as a developer who's pushing this, for example, unit tests that are trying to talk to the database, would you be able to install a DB on GitHub Actions for me to run test against?
Yes, that is possible. It is possible. It has this plan. You can have your own hosts.
Or you can have your own host,
yes,
which is like a
private
cloud,
somewhere.
a
Yes,
cloud server.
yes.
Okay.
But I don't see why. I don't see why someone would prefer that, because the reason why we are probably some of the reason that you can choose GitHub instead of hosting it yourself is you need to reduce that maintenance cost. Cost might be not money, but also the time your engineers spend on resources. Engineers, the time spent by your engineers fixing that thing that is not actually going to add value to the business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you've also mentioned the environments. I think we've talked a little bit about this, about how if we are developing a software, obviously we have different environments. You'd have dev, staging, UAT, production. Now, where is the different? I think you've mentioned there's no difference in the CI/CD pipeline for those.
Yes.
But in terms of controlling what happens, like, does a developer would have the control to everything, or do you segregate who has control on what, depending on the environment?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes. Everything is automated. We should know how or when does this needs to be in certain environment. So that I would say depends on the convention. Mainly there's so when you create a tag, you are going to version it with a name, right?
Yeah.
So that comes to naming convention of your tags. So there's this popular naming convention called SEMVEL, or semantic versioning. So where you call, say you have version 1.0.0.
Yeah.
So the V1 means major update, 0 means minor update, 0 add another 0, which is the last part is a patch. And also then you can specify, is this a release candidate or is a stable release?
Yeah.
So if you say might be having separate environments, one, you can specify inside that tag, I'm going to specify the environment that is targeted.
Yeah.
So that you can even ease the automated process. Because the automated process says, if you have this version 1.0.0, version 1.0.0 dash dev is going specifically to go into a dev environment. So you can even, that's an easy way, that is even the one that we're using.
Yeah.
If you think that version is stable to be promoted to the next environment, say from dev to staging, and then you create another new tag called version 1.0.0 dash staging. See, it is the same version, but different kind of name, targeted environment, so that it knows this is stable to be in stage environment. See, we've left what I would say, we've left the ability to say this version needs to be deployed in this environment to developers, to senior engineers, or the leads of that project, so they can decide this is ready to be in this certain environment. So the other thing, if you want to automate it, if you don't want to specify those dash dev, dash stagings, dash production, you can still use semantic versioning. Yeah. You say version 1.0.0 / beta, this is beta, maybe staging. Yeah. Dash alpha, this is probably dev. Yeah. RSCs, means they're release candidates, they need to be in UAT. If they are then stable version 1.0.0, this is production environment. Yeah.
So I would think that also would even work, let's say a mobile app that will have a beta version, and even the beta version needs to be released to the public, to whoever has subscribed.
But he knows it's better.
Yeah.
Yes.
So basically that would mean that, okay, if we tag this as beta, then we know it's going to be deployed to this kind of beta application.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I think we've also mentioned we should always be checking the CI/CD to see if it's working as expected. But what are the risks of not having or not maintaining our CI/CD, especially for software that is in production? So what are the risks that would happen if we don't really maintain it, like on a daily basis or regularly?
So I would say CI/CD pipelines, if you have it in place, is going to enforce its maintenance. Because if it is breaking, you can't even deploy in dev environment because we're using the same.
Yeah.
So we when to maintain it, when probably because the build time has increased, we know that this is, we need to maintain it, we need to improve it. When developers can deploy inside their dev environment, wow, I need to take a look at this before it can't even get to the next stages because you are stuck in dev environment. So it enforces its maintenance.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, but I would think that we would have a CI/CD. I'm trying to think which cases would have us as a risk. Yes, we have our CI/CD and it's working as expected. But as you've said, the unforeseen cases where the CI/CD is not working as expected. Let's say things were supposed to be cached, they are not being cached, or the tests that were supposed to be executed are not executed, and for some reason now this software is live. Have you faced any of those scenarios where you have a CI/CD? In the CI, you've added all the checks you need to make sure that the things that are pushed are not breaking. In the CD, you've made sure the deployment is automated as expected. But then when we get to production, we find out that maybe there is inconsistencies in what is live. Have you faced any of those cases?
Let me think. I would say yes, but most of the inconsistencies we face is not on it's due to the settings that are put that are different in different environments. Because of course the settings can be different. Say production, we know we have this big number of load we are getting daily, and in UAT we have less traffic, so numbers might differ, and in UAT we have everything is working as expected. In production you have problems because of the two environments are similar in a way but not similar in some other ways, because we don't have same resources in UAT compared to production. So those are the problems that we most of the time face are due to the different infrastructures capacity.
Okay. So I'm thinking one last question that I have. So in the CI/CD process, are you able to also test the integration with other systems? Like, would you be able to do that?
Yes, you can.
Or that would be... So I'm thinking if I add the integrations in the CI/CD to other systems, it's going to run as long as the other systems are public, it's going to be connecting to them and running the test as expected. Okay, good. And the other one about the different environments, would one be able to run some kind of performance tests before deploying a version, and we add those in the CI/CD?
Yes, I even think that will be good practice to include your integration testing, even kind of chaos testing in your CI/CD pipelines, because you don't want to be noticed that there is integration failure in production.
Yeah.
And also you don't want to know that you don't want to get to know that based on this number of people, a platform goes down from production. You need to have those data just ahead. Yeah. So that's, I think we need to have kind of, I'll call them testing engineers that build those tests, and then we include it in the pipelines. Maybe you can include them, say, when it gets to staging environments to ensure that it is not blocking the development process. But again, we are doing those tests which are critical for production environments.
And would we be able to do that like kind of asynchronously? Because I would think, let's say we want to do a stress testing of a system, but we don't want to also block the release that we are planning. Because if we are, let's say, releasing today, and we say we want to release in the next 30 minutes, but after the release, we still want to know if there is any performance issues that we can fix later. So that means instead of, let's say, waiting 2 hours for the performance test to run and get results, would we be able to asynchronously add that test aside, but we also continue with the CI/CD process?
So on the CI, so that will not be affected, but on the CD process means, yes, it's going to increase because if you add all those checks, they're going to take time. Integration testing takes longer. Yeah. And chaos testing takes longer. So also we need to measure, like business-wise, what to make more sense.
What is the benefits?
What is the benefits, yes. Maybe you can decide we are going to do integration testing. I think it's a mandatory. We should do that every time. But for chaos testing, probably you can say, let's do it on once a week. Fridays, Saturdays. It all depends on the business value, I guess. So, because if that is going to cost you to delay the release to the next week, that's going to be costly to the business. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe before we close, do you have anything else you want to add regarding CI/CD in general, even DevOps, as a closing remark?
It will be kind of summary.
Yeah.
I think it is better to have the CI/CD pipelines integrations just to create confidence in our releases. So we don't want to be in a position where if there's a release, we think we are at high risk. Yeah. Like we are scared of what might be happening when the release is up. So we are doing a release on Fridays, but still stay awake for the whole weekends, even Mondays, to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, our tippy toes, trying to think what will happen.
Don't even get to enjoy your weekend. Yeah. So I think we need to have the CI/CD pipelines to create that confidence. Also, to ensure that that's also the benefit of it is ensuring that you can deploy at any time and at fast rate compared to the traditional way. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. Thank you, William. So I think what else I would add is that basically the CI/CD is also very beneficial to engineers, because if you're developing a software and you have your engineers, you have your DevOps, you have your infra, and every time you need to make a release, you need to go look at the DevOps, please deploy this, do that. It really makes the whole process very analog and time consuming. But if you know, okay, I can create the tag and the CI/CD will take care of that, that's, as you're saying, it gives you that confidence that, okay, even if there are things that are not working, I know the CI is going to catch that and we're going to fix them before it can go live. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. I think we're going to end our topic here. I hope you had some more insight on how the CI/CD pipeline could be beneficial in having a stable system in production. And see you next time.